Welcome to another episode of Croc Talk. I am your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back Eric Crocker. And if you're not following me on Twitter, go ahead and shoot me a follow at Eric_Crocker. Also, subscribe to the Patreon account, patreon.com/Croc Talk. Now, for those of you who have been following along, you guys know that usually I'm in the dungeon recording in my gym. All right, but due to unfortunate circumstances down there in the south, snowy weather everywhere, I saw 3 degrees on the forecast. I said, get me out of here. I'm going to California. So I'm actually recording out of my mom's bedroom today. I'm in California where the weather is a lot nicer. All right. But nonetheless, I'm going to bring you guys what I promised. Jaycee Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina, 6'1", 205, son of Joe Horn. Very intriguing prospect out of South Carolina. Very intriguing. I'm about to get into his strengths, his weaknesses, and just things that I just really like and what makes him, so far, my favorite cornerback in the draft. All right, so let's talk about Jaycee Horn. Let's talk about who he is. All right, I'll never be someone to claim to have sources or anything like that, but I actually played with someone that's on the coaching staff at South Carolina. And a year ago, he told me, Croc, everybody's talking about this big corner that we have. I'm telling you, Jaycee Horn, he's the guy. He was like, he's an alpha male. He's a leader of this defense. He was like, dude stepped in as a true freshman and took command of the position group. I'm like, man, who is this guy? He was like, watch, you're going to see this year he's going to solidify himself as the best cornerback in the nation. That's what he told me. And he's been right. He told me about Deebo Samuel before anybody was on Deebo. He told me about Brian Edwards before anybody was on Brian Edwards, right? And I think that was the time I wasn't really listening to him about Brian Edwards. Started watching him, I'm like, damn, dude is good. Obviously, his rookie year didn't play out as well as he would like. But, he's telling me about these South Carolina guys. He gave me a heads up on Jaycee Horn. He said, Croc, I'm telling you. And he was right. I think Jaycee Horn is my favorite cornerback in this class. And let's talk about why now. I think the word dog is something that gets thrown around a lot these days, but I want to use a different word, and competitor. All right, and when I watch Jaycee Horn, when I throw on his film, that's what I see. I see somebody that's just willing to compete by any means necessary. It's not always the prettiest, but he's always going to compete. The game that jumps out the most is probably the Auburn game. And, in battles like that, you're going to lose some, you're going to win some. He took on the challenge of guarding Auburn's, wide receiver one, Seth Williams. And Seth Williams had a nice catch down the middle of the field on the post. I still don't know what Jaycee Horn was doing on that play, but nice catch down there. And there was also a pass interference. But outside of that, one of the best, most dominant games that I've seen from a defensive back. We're talking about somebody who had 2 interceptions. One of which there was a crosser coming. He was running vertical with his guy in man coverage. He peeled off of his guy, came down and robbed the interception. When you see instinctive plays like that, it's like, man, how doesn't this guy have more interceptions? But that was a big time play. He also broke up a pass that popped in the air and resulted in an interception by one of his teammates. Talking about multiple pass breakups in the end zone. You saw the swagger, you saw the confidence, just the ability to just take on that type of challenge and line up against a guy wherever he lined up, whether it was outside, whether it was in the slot. Like, that type of versatility to me, that means a lot. Just to be able to take on that type of challenge. So, competitor, that's the first thing that kind of jumped out to me, like having that type of ability at the cornerback position. I think one of the things that everybody always asks me, like when they ask me, hey, Croc, what's the first thing you look for in cornerbacks? And I'm like, fluid movements, can he run vertical with guys? All right, well, the good thing about the Auburn game for Jaycee Horn was he was able to put all of that on display, whether it was running vertical with guys, being aggressive with guys at the line of scrimmage. Does he have good feet? I was able to see that. Also change the direction. There was a play in a tight split where a guy ran a whip route. And when everything goes your way, it's kind of easy to just be and do what you're supposed to do. But when you're kind of just reacting, which he was on this play, I'm able to really see, how does this guy move? Does he have good feet, change of direction, hips, things like that? And I was able to see that on this play. So Jaycee Horn, he was able to really put a lot of his skill set on display against Auburn. And when you go back to 2019, one thing I try to do is, I want to look at who's the best guys that this guy covered, right? So, a lot of times I want to see, did they play against LSU? I always want to look into that game. Well, for Jaycee Horn last year, he played against Alabama. Who did Alabama have? Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, all those guys. And he had a tough challenge of guarding Devontae Smith for a lot of that game, and it was a good battle. I thought he, for the most part, held his own. I mean, there was a slant that he broke up from off coverage, which is really good because, guys like him that have that size, sometimes it's hard for them to, be able to match the movement skills of a smaller, skinnier, receiver in Devontae Smith. And he was able to do that from off coverage on a slant. That was really good. There was another slant where it was extremely contested, but Smith just made a play. And, my biggest thing I wanted to take away from that game was, does he belong on the field with Devontae Smith? We watched Devontae Smith play against Ohio State, and it was like, damn, dude, over 200 yards in the first half. Like, they don't belong on the field with him. Jaycee Horn did. Even though he gave up a catch for a touchdown, it was a slant route. Looked like he maybe peaked at the top of it. That gave Devontae Smith just enough space to be able to catch the ball and take it in for a touchdown. But for the most part, he showed some really good stuff in that game as well. Very competitive at the catch point. I thought there was a play near the goal line, on the goal line, where he took away 2 routes, right? Covered the flat route, flipped his hips, opened up, knocked away the corner route. They tried to high-low him. I thought he did a tremendous job there. So, things like that let me know his mind is in the right spot when he wants it to be, from whether it's off coverage or kind of reading route concepts. Now, although it was a good battle, I did think that Devontae Smith got the better of Jaycee Horn. There were a few times on outbreaking routes when Devontae Smith was threatening him vertically, and you could see him get too far upfield and Devontae Smith sit his route down and have Horn still kind of drift upfield a little bit. All right, I was really high, and I tweeted out, man, I have a lot of stuff to say about Jaycee Horn. And one thing that really jumped out to me that I found extremely intriguing was he wasn't so much of a technician as he was just super scrappy, right? So he'd get up to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes his feet were staggered. Sometimes he'd take false steps. It wasn't always just step or plays, pure step, kick, step, all that. It was more so, I'm going to line up and I'm just going to guard you. I'm just going to cover you however I have to do. Now, again, I look at things like that. Like, man, he's making plays. He's putting himself in position to knock passes away, contest passes here and there. Sometimes that might make you a little inconsistent at the next level and whatnot, but that's something you can improve on. You can improve on your technique, which is only going to make him even better. I think that was something that I'm like, man, that's intriguing, because I see a terrific prospect. I see a gamer when I'm watching the film. This is not even the finished product yet, right? So now he's working with Oliver Davis, who's a defensive back guru out of Atlanta. And, I mean, they've been going full force with, technique, footwork, step replace, all that type of stuff, getting them ready for, his pro day. And, they don't have combine this year, but that's his trainer. And, I mean, dude does a terrific job. So technique, that's not something that I worry about. Again, I watched the film and it was a little all over the place, but he got the job done. And I think he's only going to take it to the next level once he finds that consistency with his technique. Now, if there's somewhere I feel like he can really improve on right now, is probably the consistency with the tackling. Now, it is there. The physicality is there. I mean, there's plays you can see him, boom, run into a guy, throw him out the way, go in, make a tackle. All that's great. There's also some plays where you see him whiff a little bit. Maybe he closed his eyes or dropped his head and just missed. I thought maybe from his crack replace standpoint, he was a little slow diagnosing it and, pulling the trigger on that. You'd see that his guy crack down and he kind of still be out there, 5-10 yards off or whatever, just kind of slow playing it. When your guy cracks, you got to replace right now. I thought he was a little inconsistent with that. He's a very willing tackler, so that's not an issue there. He's willing to go in there, and there's a play I put in the clips where, he dips underneath offensive lineman and tries to go in and make the tackle. Like, those are things I really want to see. So the willingness is there, the toughness is there, the mindset is there. Just sometimes the execution is just a little bit lacking, and I do think that he can improve on, how fast he processes the crack replace. There's been a lot of talk about who is the CB1, right? There's a lot of people that say Surtain, there's a lot of people that say Farley, but for my money, the guy that I like the most right now is definitely Jaycee Horn. I mean, he is the total package, and the things that I even feel like he maybe isn't quite as good, like from a technical standpoint, as a Surtain, is not an issue where he's at right now. I think he does well, and I think he's just going to take it to the next level. The things you can't coach or teach, that attitude, that aggressiveness, that mindset. I'm going to get into a player comps now that kind of reminds me of Jalen Ramsey, a guy who is really aggressive with guys, really, takes on a bunch of different challenges, plays outside, plays inside, will get in receivers' heads. We saw what he did with AJ Green that made AJ Green choke him out and get him kicked out the game. It was the aggressiveness from Jalen Ramsey leading up to that point. Another guy that he really reminds me of is Janoris Jenkins. Jenkins is another one, really scrappy. Maybe not the most technically sound guy, but really good press man guy. When you get Janoris Jenkins off, sometimes he can have a little bit of mental lapse. We saw when him in space against Des Bryant, I still don't know what he was doing. And I have some of those moments with Jaycee Horn where he's kind of freelancing a little bit in space. But for the most part, I compare him to those two, and I think the world of those guys. I think, Janoris Jenkins a few years ago when he was on the Giants, he had a year where it's like, man, is he the best corner in the league? Not taking anything away from the other two guys, and I like Patrick Surtain and a lot of what he brings, and I like Farley and his high-end athleticism. But for my money right now, with what I'm seeing, and again, I'll change my mind down the line as I watch a bunch more of these guys. Jaycee Horn, dude. I think that's CB1 right now, man. Scrappy guy, pushing guys around, the bully on the field. There's a lot to really like about Jaycee Horn, and I hope y'all like this right here. So that's going to be it right here on Croc Talk. I'll get with you guys later this week. We'll get into some more breakdowns, and I'm going to ask you guys who you guys want to like, who you guys want to hear about. So appreciate you guys checking in. Make sure, if you guys have any questions or even recommendations or whatever, message me, patreon.com/Croc Talk. Send those in right here. See y'all next time.